Okay, this video is how to repair your leaking Hamilton Beach Flex Brew. This coffee maker is less than a year old. Started pouring water. Currently it still will brew a portion of a pot of coffee, but the majority of the water goes on the counter. I've seen several videos out on the internet, but I didn't see anything that really addressed the problem we're having. Everything seems to address the K-cup side and the clogged nozzle that you can fix with a paper clip, but nothing addresses the full pot side, which is a much bigger problem, just much more water that leaks when it starts. So you can see I've removed the basket and the parts that are easy to remove, and then I've gone ahead and removed the lid and disconnected this piece from the underside of the lid. Pull this little plastic mechanism off that releases the piece that where the water's pumped up through this spray dispenser into the basket, which brews the coffee. This is really not necessary, as it turns out. You really don't need to go through this if you're having a problem with the larger side of the coffee maker. So I'm just going to I have some water that I'm going to use in a second just to show you. But yeah, removing the lid and everything and separating this, I just wanted to make sure I could find the leak once I went to this trouble. So at any rate, removing the lid and that kind of thing, it's really not necessary, as it turns out. I did remove the bottom first. So removing the bottom, you've got these security screws. They're really a pain to deal with, unless you've got a certain type of screwdriver that, you know, will get them out. I'll tell you what will get them out though. Just a small flat screwdriver. It backs them out. You have to use a little pressure, but it'll get them out. So you can see, if I can get this thing to turn loose. I've got all the screws out. And there we go. So I backed out the screws. There were probably 6 or 8 screws in the bottom of this thing, and I just backed out those security screws so I could get the bottom of it. And so now I'm going to put some water in it and show you what I found. I've got a little makeshift stand I've created so I could literally start to brew water in it and look up underneath it to determine where that leak is, where water's coming from. A little water. Reservoir. Yeah, I figure by the time this is over, I'll have enough water in this kitchen that, yeah, I'll probably need to overhaul these floors. At any rate. Okay. Right under there. We'll start it brewing, and we'll take it a second. Just as soon as you'll see that as soon as the pump starts, that the leak will start. So you see, as soon as it starts to heat and percolate the water, here we go. So see if I can get you a good shot. of where that water's coming from. It's hot. Well, get the idea. You get the idea, and I mean, it really pours. Turn that coffee maker off. See if I can get you a better shot. Yeah. Maybe. Yeah. Yeah, that's where the problem is. The problem is right up there. It's right there where that hose connects. I'll cut it back on 1 second and show you. Yeah, see that? It's clearly where it's coming from. Okay, guys. Got the coffee maker emptied out again, upside down. And I saw where it was fairly easy to pull the panel loose here on the bottom, because once that screw is out, then the panel has these clips that where it clips into the back piece here. So just by pulling on it gently, I was able to pry it loose enough to free that back up, and then that exposed this screw. It's like a single screw here. There's not one at the bottom. So looks like a single screw that might hold this back on. I've got to get to this hose. So I've got to get to that hose, and it runs down the back of the machine, and it's very narrow here, so you can't really get in there to be able to check that fitting that looks like it's where the hose and the clamp, it looks like around the top of that fitting, the bottom of that fitting, if it were upright, is where this leak's taking place. So I've got to get this back off to be able to expose that hose. So I'm going to remove that screw and see what we got. Okay, so I found one more screw down there. I don't know if you can see that. There's one more screw. So I'm going to remove it. Man, you're never going to believe what I discovered. I mean, this is really something that when I removed that last screw, that one there, it was a little tough to get to. I had to pry around on these plastic pieces quite a bit. I'm glad that they're still pliable enough that the unit's not too old to where they're brittle, but I was able to pry around on it and get down to that screw there. But look, as soon as I reached in here and touched this hose, see if I can get you a shot of this. Hold on, I've got to get this, some light on this. As soon as I touched that hose, I mean, it was just sitting on that nozzle, just sitting on it. See, that nozzle's completely off. It was just literally resting on it. I don't know how it wasn't completely. Sorry about that. I don't know how it wasn't just completely off, because as soon as I just ever so slightly touched it, it lifted right off the nozzle. It wasn't even attached. So that's the problem. So I'm going to get some needle nose pliers and put that hose back on and see if I can have a pot of coffee. Overlook all this amateur video stuff. This is my first one. Hadn't done this before. But it looks like we're going to solve this problem. I'll be back. Okay, so I got that screw out. When I got the screw out, I was able to gently pry on the cover enough that I was able to remove the back at least partially to where I could get my hand in there. Now, I got to say that mechanism, the bracket on top where the hose clamp, you see I put a screw type, worm drive clamp on this thing. I don't plan on doing this twice. I mean, this little flimsy deal here may have been the problem, or it could have been that the hose just wasn't on there far enough, but it's definitely on all the way now, and it's got a worm drive clamp on it. If it comes off now, it was meant to. And of course, to give me a little flexibility, I took the other end loose just so I could have a little bit of room to work with. But that's not, it's got plenty of reach. That's not a problem as far as hooking it back up. That's no big deal. And I really needed the flexibility. It's tight working conditions here, of course. Man, you get in here, your hands are as big as mine. You get inside of a freaking plastic coffee maker trying to fix what should have never been an issue. If the fact is, if the nipple on that fitting, if it had been extended, if it was hard plastic and it had reached within reason up into this area to where you could have accessed it from the bottom, then you just wouldn't be having that problem. But then again, they couldn't sell more coffee makers as fast, I guess. But like I say, you see, I kind of went overkill. I put the old worm drive clamp on it, but bet that thing doesn't leak again at that spot. So anyway, that's it. And about all that's left is just buttoning it back up. I'm sure that was the problem. There's no doubt based on what I found. So if you've got one of these, if you've got the old Hamilton Beach Flex Brew, it's a great coffee maker. It's one of the reasons I didn't chunk this thing in the can and go get another coffee maker, is because this is a great coffee maker. And I've had it less than a year. So, but if yours is leaking like mine was and you saw it was pouring, here's the solution I came up with. Now I'm going to button it back up, and good luck with your repair if you're facing the same kind of issue. One other thing regarding the disassembly of the unit, I said it wasn't necessary to take the lid off, but actually it is necessary to take this screw out, because this assembly, let me see if I can show you this. This assembly is a two-part, and so typically it looks like that, the two pieces together, and it sits down in this plastic piece, and there's a screw that you can see that goes right there. So the screw comes out, and the dispenser, the sprayer, comes off of that plastic bracket, and underneath you'll see there's a screw here. Now, to remove that the way that I did in this video, that screw really does need to come out, because it's tied to the back housing. So that screw does need to come out. And just be patient when you're trying to maneuver around these panels on this thing, because they do pop apart, and you think you'll break them. Maybe luckily I didn't break any, but you just have to have some patience and just pry on them gently, and then those little clips tend to give up with a little pressure, but just don't get too frustrated with it. That screw does have to come out to be able to access the back panel the way I did. It's almost right in the center, and that's really where you need that flexibility to get your hand in there and get that hose reconnected. Dry as a bone.